What's up, crypto media friends? Just back from the ferocious painting party, which was really nice to engage with the artist in that way, just in the midst of their play. And there was a lot of interesting parties, throughout LA during the past week for NFT LA, and it's just such a great way. Again, I love IRLs and being able to connect with members of the community, especially ones that you've talked to on Discord and on Twitter for a year now, it seems, and being able to connect in real life was really a pleasure, and you feel a little less alone in this space when you do these sort of things, even though it may cost a bit to attend the convention. I think that one of the common denominators from my conversations was there's a bit of elitism, honestly, within the pricing of these things, right? But there is sort of it germinates out into this space, and there were just several people that I met up with that were very at home with going to those outside satellite events, because ostensibly many of them were very free, and had that same vibe. And so especially if you were a holder of something, you could get into that event for free. And most of the time it was like an art party. They had art parties have free alcohol and good food to eat. So I got a message from a subscriber who was like, I wanted to know more about the booths. Unfortunately, I didn't get to do a video about the booths. And as I mentioned in a previous post, they were more B2B, which was very interesting. They were just looking for creators and projects to connect with them. I think MetaMask just suffered a lot because people were just going to their booth and they were just screaming, "WEN TOKEN!" There was a couple of influencers that were really ramping up the click count, because they would just stand in front of the booth and scream it. And you can see those people on Twitter. But it really, I hope it opened their eyes to the demand for their token would be quite high, because we've all used it, and I'm using it for swapping now. And so, I think once Uniswap did it, and once MetaMask had that functionality, it was almost expected, like, okay, well, when's the token coming? I'm sure they got plans, because they were very shy to say anything about it. One interesting company that I came across was Faith Tribe. I'm going to do some more research personally on it. The speaker held a forum just by himself. The owner, really well established in the world of fashion, and it was interesting. He seemed very centralized, but he was looking to try and leverage the decentralization. On one hand, he was also trying to leverage young talent who wanted to come and make it on his platform, but he was at least giving tools to make wearables in both. And so I think as streetwear develops and as fashion develops, they're going to merge. And one of the big takeaways was this week from the Azuki Den party was that they had a jacket. And it was not a black hoodie, with the logo on. It was an extension of fashion that has not been seen before in this space, honestly. It was as if Alessandro Michel designed it. They really looked at Gucci, I think, as an inspiration. But Azuki is... you've heard a lot from them this week, I'm sure, with their double drop, dropping about $6,000 worth of additional NFTs, maybe even per, because you get two, and as well as just holding a really great IRL that everyone was really excited about. And so, praise was an interesting thing. I think it's a social token, and they're trying to they're leveraging these great A-list talents that they have connections with, but they're trying to generate for them ways in which they can engage into cryptocurrency and kind of strengthen relationships with fans via NFTs, NFT projects for Shaquille O'Neal. So there was a lot of that type of intermixing. There's just a lot of people with quote unquote connections to Hollywood, connections to artists who are leveraging their knowledge of this space. And this is sort of, what I've been preaching throughout this almost entire year of doing this show with you guys, is to look for these opportunities, leveraging the things that you have and your understanding of the space. And the more that you steep and get informed about the space, the better that you're going to be able to make those connections to the space. For people who are seeking it out, who just don't have the time. You're John Legend. You're too busy being John Legend. So, many other partners. There were a lot of startups. I mean, there were some traditional ones like Ripple. I think that there were a lot of B2B devs, sort of kind of companies that were quasi like, oh, hey, we'll make it for you. But when you kind of poked them about it, they were as scared as I am about securing a proper dev to do Solidity, because they're very flighty at the moment. And if you don't have their loyalty, they're balancing 7 projects. And so I got that sense from them as well, that they can't quite hold on to them. Waxman was an interesting play. They are a massive PR firm, but they're not pivoting majorly, but just had a little pivot of like, hey, we're going to be servicing bigger platforms that they've established, like Rarity and Rarible, and we had so many conversations with as you're sort of trying to have like conversations over loud music and drinks, of just like, did you check the Rarity tools? What about the Rarity sniffer and what was the Rarible? There's so many rare whatever's tools for us available to check rarities. But Waxman is, if you have the dough, man, they're a powerhouse of a PR marketing company for you to engage with, and they're getting sophisticated. And that was their pitch, was like, hey, we're training our staff in how to engage in this space, leveraging a tremendous amount of understanding from Web 2. And so bringing that to the table, I think they're a bit for higher budgets in a sense, but I could see they were actually working down, because not everybody there was was a marketplace, and so they were just like, oh well, you can. I'm moving. So look at that as the messages come in. They were moving down towards the creative level, asking, essentially, do you have the next Suzuki? Do you have the next big thing? Because they'd be willing to work with something like that if you had the budget. Some of the others that stood out to me, obviously the MetaMask one again was almost comical because of the people sort of making jokes about the token drop, but I think their presence was really a great one, and I'm hoping to see more of them at events like this, because they were able to onboard so many people. You could come up, do a QR code, and you could get and apply, or not apply, but just get the extension from MetaMask right there and then. And they would just stand there, and they had a bunch of people to onboard you into the world of crypto. A lot of people there still didn't quite know how to onboard. They knew they wanted to be involved, and they knew, I'd say like a good half of people were really there to educate themselves, and maybe even more, but I think it's such a big space, but we're really starting from zero. Like, they didn't have an onboarding, on-ramping, Coinbase or even crypto.com, which was, I kept pointing to, because people were like asking, well, how do I get involved? I kept pointing to the big sign, because we were at crypto.com Center, which has taken over the naming rights from the Staples Center. And so I just kept pointing to crypto.com. I was like, just go there, on board, buy your crypto, get your MetaMask. And then you can play in the space. Live Peer was, there was a lot of hosting on the panels, and I wish that the panels, and I talked about this, that they were very quick and they were very fast, and they wanted to get through a lot of stuff. That left a lot of me wanting, in terms of like maybe even a Q&A session and breakout sessions, because you have this opportunity to interact with Live Peer, but they're on a panel, with their competitors, these other things that were, it was, maybe 20 minutes of them introducing themselves, and then that's all we have time for. So it was, they were all very short panels, but their presence there, was important. And certainly, after you could try and, corral them for a conversation. But it was very interesting. The moderators were very bearish on video at the moment. They just were very adamant that they did not think that projects like LivePure, probably Kudos might be in that same area, those offering compute. And I almost wanted to like get in the conversation. I'm like, well, hold on here. There's quite a few actually that are able to process compute with extremely large bandwidth, like Akash, maybe even Kudos coming up. And I think LivePure almost felt punched in the gut by the comments because it was like, oh, you guys can't do that yet. And it's just like, well, we're doing it. and as I showed on the channel, Fox is doing it. And so it was just like, oh, well, you don't have the centralization, you don't have the capital to have a broad streaming service that can, actuate, because if you try and do it on the internet, you're going to have like a 2-second delay and nobody's going to want to watch that. And so it was very interesting how bearish they were on video still. So, we're early on the video side. I don't think, it's here yet in a sense, because as, things build out, I think as we get different media on there, like music, you saw a lot of projects here that were trying to offer NFTs that were multimedia, and but I think if you got into deeper conversations, like, oh yeah, we can house movies and all these things, and again, they're utilizing the key of it to plug into a locker that houses these things. The movies themselves would not be on chain, so it was a very mixed bag, and if you're not steep in this space, they could lead you one way or the other into thinking that you had the ability to scale. Dapper Labs had a lot of great panels that they helped put together. It was quite interesting to see them. CyberKong's had a huge kind of Lego Kong, and you could come up and get a free banana if you were older, I guess. I didn't even try. I'm sure anybody could have. Secret Factory was a very nice physical space in Los Angeles. There was a lot of physical spaces that I thought were interesting. They were trying to leverage their art gallery-esque-ness with NFTs, NFT Pay, these, sort of payment plays, poker, gambling, and so there was, I didn't really see an Animoca. I'm sure they did some sort of sponsorship stuff. Oh, you know what they did? Of course, the head of Animoca was there, and had to speak about the big sort of theft heist that occurred, the biggest, I think, so far in crypto land. And but he seemed very confident that they were going to find the person or persons involved, and that they were gonna, face some justice, because you just can't get away with something like that on that scale. So they better put on their white hat hacker really quick and be like, oh, we were just testing the system. Here you go. It's back. So I will probably try and do a better job with booths on the next one. It's a bit loud in there, and that's just kind of why, some people can do them, when you're at trade shows because they have bigger booths, but when the booths are just right next to each other, it was very, very, very loud. And I don't know if you would even have had any good sense of any good conversations and what they're about. They might have given you the quick pitch, but Aokiverse, Steve Aoki was really banging on that in this space. His project manager is genius, though. She's or community manager. She is really, really awesome. So I mean, it's just it's here. We're not early anymore. I'll show maybe some of the Batman stuff that was there, but Warner Brothers was there in a big way, and they have this phygital that is a collector's card, and then you scan it, and then it'll pop an NFT into your MetaMask, and so it's all kind of here. And so they're just playing and trying to figure out, which properties make sense for them to get into. And clearly the DC angle for them, the collectibles are already there. They're just going to try and, connect and augment for NFTs. And, I think like a lot of projects or studio projects have, but I think that they have a bit more ammunition at their disposal in terms of properties. So a lot of really fantastic stuff I'm still trying to process. A lot of long nights. It's funny, like, getting into the phase of doing this type of stuff, of just doing conventions. You could tell was really taxing on everyone. It's just like we're just not used to this anymore, are we? Like, just the all day of like conventioning and then going all night. People were wrecked the following, just even after the first day. People were like barely getting into the convention like at noon and 1. That's where the longest lines were, because people just couldn't get up that early anymore because they've been up all night, partying at a Zuki tent or what have you, at all these insane parties that were happening. And so par for the course maybe, but you could just really see it in the convention. It was a bit comical. People were just yawning, like just passing out in the convention because it was just so taxing as we build up our resilience to engage with each other IRL and in the world of NFTs. And I'm excited to share more with you as we potentially go on to more of these. But certainly for LA, having their first one was a fantastic thing. Sure, it's going to be better. It can be better. It'll be better as they move forward. But to have something IRL was really nice. And so I invite you guys to go to these things. And again, if you feel pressured monetarily, like it's just too much, because some of these are, very expensive. A lot of the people on the VIP side, I will say, I talked to a lot of them. They said it's just not worth it. There was one guy who was like, it was really worth it for him because he felt he could sit in the VIP lounge and he could just ask questions to people who were, sort of in a probably didn't pay for their VIP ticket, to be honest. Like they were just like, gajillionaires. There were certainly very, very wealthy people who are maybe a bit advanced in business and maybe have advanced their projects through that money that they have to very interesting places. And, he felt like he could talk to them and ask them questions, so that if that's valuable for you, that's what you get by paying the extra. I think it was maybe $1,000, $1,500 at the low end. I saw tickets were selling at $5,000 by the end of it. But again, if that's a barrier, attend the events outside of it. Look for and hit your community up on Discord and be like, hey, are you guys doing something? I mean, there was really simple stuff like barbecues. People were just like, oh, hey, there's going to be a lot of people in town. I'll host a barbecue on my roof, or let's all go out to Wurstkush in downtown Los Angeles. And so there was a lot of great community development events, and I think that if you see a convention near you, and you don't want to be fed up with the convention stuff, look to your own communities and maybe even host one yourself, because I think that's a really great way to meet members of this of your communities and strengthen